Hello and welcome back to another episode of Ball Around the Head. First things first, happy Mother's Day to all the mothers out there. Second thing, as you may know, Andrew is not here. He's celebrating Mother's Day with his mom, so good for him,
He's a
obviously.
better son than us.
Exactly. So, anyways, the show must go on, and we have quite a bit to talk about, actually. And the first things first is probably the thing that tied an NBA record that's been there for quite some time, and that is Russell Westbrook. And as you can tell by the title of this YouTube video and the podcast, Russell Westbrook made history the other day. He had his, 181st career triple-double, which tied Oscar Robertson's record for number one overall. The rate he's going, it's going to be Westbrook's record by the time we next stream. So I'm going to go into the assumption that he has the record. So I've been talking about this on this podcast all year long. It seems like so many people are just like dissing Westbrook because he's not winning. The Wizards weren't winning at the beginning when he was putting up good numbers. But now the Wizards are winning, and a lot of teams are saying, whoa, this Wizards team is scary. So are we taking Westbrook for granted, Ben?
I think a little bit. I think we are a little bit. The thing is, to be fair, he did not have the impact on winning that we thought he would have with the Rockets and then the beginning of the year with the Wizards. I think now, people are not really underestimating him anymore because the Wizards are making moves, and they're one of the hottest teams in the league, and Westbrook's obviously been the lead of that. He's carried them and obviously broke or tied Oscar Robertson's triple-double record. In terms of his career, he's guaranteed Hall of Famer. He's going to be Mr. Triple-Double. That's for sure. But I don't fault people for doubting Westbrook a little bit. I doubted him, during his time with the Rockets and in the beginning of this year, just because he wasn't playing as well as he used to, and he wasn't winning. Like an MVP caliber player should be able to make your team a lot better than he did, but he's returned to his former self, it feels like, and so I don't think it was wrong to doubt him back then, but he definitely looks better now.
Yeah, I've been hyping up Westbrook the past few episodes on this podcast, but I will admit I was one of those haters of Westbrook. Like, oh, he pads his stats. There's some videos out there that show like nobody grabs rebounds and he's the only one there. But this year, it's made me shut up. I believe that's just now false. I don't think he is a star player on a championship winning team, but he is definitely a second or third option on a championship winning team. But at the same time, it's just incredible that we see the stats he's putting up, and we're just so numb to it. It's just like, oh, Westbrook got another triple-double, whatever. And now it's like, wait a minute. He's passing a record that's been there for a very long time and with ease. Like, he just went by it really quick. His stats for the season, for those who don't know, he's averaging 22 points per game, 11.6 rebounds per game, which is his career high. His previous career high was 11.1. 11.5 assists per game, which is almost one assist higher than his previous career high. 1.3 steals. He's not shooting the ball the best, but that's kind of been Westbrook's game for the past couple years. He's actually out shooting, 64% from the free throw line, which is pretty horrible. And obviously he averages about 5 turnovers a game, but that's expected when you put up, what does he have? Like so many 20 assist games, you're going to get a lot of turnovers. So I'm scared of this Wizards team. I think I've heard a lot on ESPN broadcasts, because I've been listening to some ESPN games, that some people are like, yo, let's be a little careful of this Wizards team because they will outscore you. That's how they're going to beat you. They're not going to lock you up to 90 points. They will outscore you. Just the other day, they outscored Indiana 133 to 132. That's what they're going to do. We mentioned this last week. Will they beat Brooklyn? Most likely not, but they will definitely give Brooklyn a run for their money if they were to get it. Philadelphia, same thing, or Milwaukee, whoever they may face. So the Wizards are not going to win the championship, but they're not a team you want to face, in my opinion. So shout out to Westbrook. I'm glad that he's proving a lot of people wrong that just thought he was putting up empty stats and it's not affecting winning. Recently, he's on a huge roll and they're winning a bunch of games. So
would you put him, where would you put him in terms of the all NBA teams?
Ooh. I don't know if the NBA teams do point guards or guards in general. I think he should make at least the third team, at least, just because of the stats alone. Like the triple double isn't just like he just got a triple double. He's averaging 11 and a half on each of the categories except for points, which is 22. Like he's putting it and then some. So I don't know. That's an interesting topic that we should talk about on one stream is the all NBA teams, because that's another thing that's been debated. A bunch of players have a lot of money riding on some all NBA. I think Jason Tatum has $32 million if he makes an all NBA team this year, or if he doesn't. That's kind of incredible. Staying with the East in the playoff picture, if you're an NBA fan, you know last year the Bucks had an historic season. They were very, very good all regular season long, historic defense. And then come playoff time, Miami just destroyed them. Miami was the better team as the 5th seed, I believe Miami was, and Milwaukee was the 1 seed, and it seemed like the roles were reversed. And this season, the Bucks won game 1 144-72. They set an NBA record, I believe, with most three-pointers in a game. And then the very next day, the Heat won 119-108. So, Ben, as of right now, when we were recording this podcast, if the playoffs were to start today, it would be the Heat Bucks first round. Should the Heat be scared, or the Bucks be scared about that?
I'm gonna say no, they shouldn't be scared. You know, a couple years ago when the Raptors beat the Bucks, everyone was like, "Oh, the Raptors have figured it out. They're the Giannis stoppers." And then it was the Heat. The Heat are the Giannis stoppers. At some point, it just falls on the Bucks, and I think they've taken steps to address that, where Giannis driving down and getting a bucket in the lane is not their only source of offense. Now they have Drew Holiday, and obviously Chris Middleton's continued to improve since then. So honestly, they just need to get past whatever. If it's a mental thing in the playoffs recently, I don't think it has. I don't think they should be too worried about who they're going to play. It's going to come down to how they play, basically.
I think the kryptonite for the Bucks these past few years, to your point, it's not really the Heat or the Raptors. It's their coach. He's been heavily criticized because in the regular season, he's a great coach. But in the postseason, he doesn't make adjustments. And he's been heavily critiqued. That's why he lost his job with the Hawks when he was a very, very good coach record-wise. In the playoffs, he got destroyed. I think he got swept the both times like they advanced or something like that because he never made adjustments. The teams you saw with the Raptors and Heat, they made a wall against Giannis. And back then, they had like Eric Bledsoe and they guarded Middleton, so they had everybody else force them to win by making threes. And as you mentioned, they upgraded with Drew Holiday, who is a humongous upgrade over Eric Bledsoe. So should the Bucks be afraid? No, because the Bucks are a way better team, in my opinion, than they were last year. Drew Holiday solves a lot more than you think, especially in a series against Miami. And when they do like force Giannis to not make an impact, he can easily score 30. Middleton could easily score 30. And they got some solid pieces around that. So I've fallen victim to this the past few years of buying too much into the Bucks. But I have a very strong feeling this Bucks seems to be a lot better than people are giving them credit for. I just think that they're going to be very, very good this postseason. I don't know.
I agree.
I think they could take Brooklyn to at least 6, maybe 7. Like I feel like, they just beat Brooklyn back-to-back a couple days ago. So I don't know. We'll see what happens there. Actually, there was a report. They said that if Budenholzer doesn't go far in this playoffs, he should be fired. So that'd be interesting. I bet you a bunch of teams will bounce on that.
That's a lot better justification than a lot of coaches get for being fired, honestly.
Yeah. So we were just talking about the East playoff picture. Let's switch over to the West. And a team we've heavily talked on this podcast about, mainly because they're one of the most popular franchises in NBA. And on this podcast, we have two Laker fans, so we kind of have to. So the other day, the Lakers lost to the Portland Trailblazers. And with that loss, they lost the season series against the Trailblazers and the Mavericks, which means they lose the tiebreaker. So as we're recording right now, they are 1.5 game behind the Blazers and I think 2.5 behind the Mavericks. But they're leading the Suns. As I think I remember by 8 o'clock, they were up by something against the Suns. So
they're currently up 16, which is a nice surprise.
Without like Kuzma and LeBron. Anyways, like we said with the Bucks, if the season were to end today, the Lakers would be in the play-in. Ben, is that such a bad thing though?
No, I'm not concerned about the play-in. like I said, as long as they stay above the 9th seed and don't have to win 2 straight games to stay alive, I'm feeling all right, which is very likely at this point. They're 3 games ahead of the Grizzlies with 4 games to go. Like, it's very unlikely that they'd fall to 9. And like in the play-in, if they lose 2 games against like the Warriors and the Grizzlies and they get out, then they would have been in trouble if they got the 6th seed anyway. Like, that's not what I'm concerned about. The concern isn't where they fall. It's about their health, obviously. And they've looked terrible because they're not healthy. I mean, LeBron, right after he came back, he suffered a setback. And then Anthony Davis with his ankle and then back spasms again. Like, it just comes down to whether those guys are healthy, and it's as simple as that. If they're not, then they don't have a chance. And if they do, then the Jazz and the Suns are not necessarily worse matchups than the Clippers or the Nuggets. Like, the West, there's no bad teams in the top half of the West. Like, every matchup is a tough matchup, and they're going to have to fight through 3 of those teams no matter what. So it comes down to their health, not on where they fall.
Yeah, we have a group chat, me, Ben, and Andrew, and earlier in the group chat, me and Andrew were just talking about this, and Andrew brought up a good point, which I agree with, is I think it's probably the best case scenario that the Lakers are in the play-in, because in my opinion, I would much rather face the Jazz or the Suns in the first round than the Clippers. Yes, the Clippers have all these jokes, they choke, all this stuff, but I think this Clippers team is good. I said this about the Bucks. I could be wrong again. I think this Clippers team is really good. Playoff Rondo is an actual thing. And the Suns, they're, besides Chris Paul, which, I mean, Chris Paul's never made an NBA Finals in his life, but besides him, they're majority, like, pretty inexperienced. The Jazz, they've only made the semifinals. I don't think they made the conference finals with this core at all. So if I'm the Lakers, Jeff Van Gundy talked about this on Friday's broadcast for the Celtics and Bulls. The play-in would give LeBron and AD more reps, basically, because they're not going to lose 2 straight. They're not, no matter who they face. Like, they could potentially lose to the Warriors, but they're not going to lose to the winner of Memphis and San Antonio. If they do, I would be stunned. That would probably stun the entire sports world. But it's most likely not going to happen. So they would get reps. And I think that might be the best thing for that team, who has been without LeBron for the majority of the season, AD for the majority of the season. They've had a bunch of injuries. So I think being the play-in is probably the best case scenario for the Lakers, in my opinion. I feel like Laker fans got a little angry when they lost, but I feel like it's kind of a blessing in disguise. I just think the Clippers could give them a run for their money. We've seen the past 2 regular season, the Clippers have just destroyed. Yes, the postseason is a little different, but I still would much rather face the Suns or the Jazz from the Lakers.
I believe in the Suns and the Jazz a little bit more. I think they've had incredible seasons, but I think it's about the same. Like, I don't think the Clippers would be a much worse or better matchup than either of those teams. But I agree with the point that it would be good to have 2 extra games, assuming LeBron and Anthony Davis are healthy, just to get everyone back in the rhythm again. So I agree with that it very well could be the best situation because of that.
And I mean, if LeBron's not healthy, then I think everything I just said goes out. And exactly. I don't trust the Lakers to win 2 straight games. So we're kind of going to stay in the West right now. Not really playoff talk, but the Nets just beat the Nuggets the other day. The Nuggets blew a pretty big lead, if I'm not mistaken. And after the game, Steve Nash said, I'm kind of paraphrasing here, that there is no doubt that Nikola Jokic should win the MVP. Ben, is he right?
No, he is not right in the sense that it's not no doubt. It is, in my opinion, it's one of the closer MVP races we've had in a while. I don't think it's the Joker wins it, no doubt. My MVP is Nikola Jokic, I think, but just like barely over Embiid and just barely over Steph Curry as well. I think Curry needs to get a little more credit for what he's done with the Warriors. In my opinion, like the Warriors could literally be the worst team in the league. If not
they'd be a lottery team without an argument. There's no chance.
But I think Jokic is my MVP barely, and I think I'm predicting that he will be the actual MVP as well.
Real quick, I see your comment. Shout out to Clayton in the chat. I'm kind of with you, kind of not. I agree with you on the term that Jokic is the MVP, but kind of not on the fact that I kind of think he's not going to win unanimously. I don't think he will because it's hardly ever happened. But I feel like he has put up the best stats in the league, not just like the most points, because if you think that most points means the best stats, you're just terribly mistaken. He's putting up 26 points per game, almost 11 rebounds, 8 assists for a big man, by the way, 8 assists for a big man, 56% shooting from the field, 40% from three, 1.4 steals, 0.7 blocks. He's doing everything. He's doing everything for this Nuggets team. And look at, right, they were without Jamal Murray. We talked about the significance of that, and they're still playing good basketball because of Jokic and Michael Porter Jr. and other people, but Jokic is still playing really good basketball. To Jokic's point, a little off topic, Jokic may get the worst whistle in the entire league. He is frustrated every game. It seems like he gets fouled every single game and they just don't call it for him. Maybe winning an MVP changes that because, you know, we win an MVP, the refs respect you a little bit more. That's a little side rant. But Steve Nash is 50-50 right. Yes, he's going to win MVP. It won't be unanimous, though, but I feel like it should be quite an overwhelming amount of votes towards Jokic. That's just what I think. But, you know, the media is weird. They who knows what they would do.
I think either way, it will be good. I agree with Hakeem Olajuwon to see a big man win the MVP once again. It's been a while.
Yeah, it was a position that was extinct that a lot of teams thought of just putting small forwards and power forwards there and just getting rid of a bunch of centers. And finally, they've been rejuvenated, in my opinion. I feel like a lot more centers are being prioritized during the game. So this next topic's a little close to home. It's the Boston Celtics. We talked about the Celtics a couple weeks ago. They were on like a 6-game winning streak, and I asked Ben and Andrew, did they figure it out? We all said yes, I think except for Andrew. And we're here again, and it doesn't seem like the Celtics have figured it out. They've lost 2 straight games. Won a blowout in Chicago. They probably should have won. And today against Miami, it was a blowout the entire way. And then Boston made a fake rally near the end to make it a 6-point win for the Heat, though. And right now, as we are speaking, the Celtics are the 7th seed. They are 2 games out of the Heat for the 6th seed and 2 games out of the Hawks for the 5th seed, and only 2 games ahead of the Hornets for the 8th seed. So, Ben, should Celtics fans be concerned about being in the play-in?
I don't think so. I think similar to the Lakers' position, like it might be the best case for them because if the season were to end right now, the Bucks are in 3rd, and the Bucks might honestly be the worst matchup out of the Sixers, the Nets, and the Bucks for them. They actually have defenders who can guard the Nets, who are currently in their scorers, who are currently in the 2 seed, and if they win their first game, they play the Nets if everything shook out how it is right now. That being said, though, I'm not picking them over any of those 3 teams in the first round of the playoffs. And one of the reasons that Celtics fans should not be concerned is because, I mean, did you really expect them to win a first-round series to begin with as of right now, the way they're playing? They should make the playoffs.
They dug their own hole. I don't feel bad that they're facing the 3-headed monster in the East, either one of them. They lost games to teams under 500 that they should have won. They played over 500 teams pretty well, but those ones against under 500, you always hear it, the saying, good teams beat them, bad teams obviously don't, and mediocre teams split it. And that's exactly what the Celtics did. They're just so bipolar, if I could use that word. They will just have the best game ever against like the Lakers, the Clippers, and a bunch of those elites. And then the very next day they get blown out by the Thunder at home. And it's just, who are the Celtics? When they're fully engaged, they're a good team, but they have not been fully engaged for quite some time. Yes, injuries are a problem, but I'm not sure that's a good excuse for how poorly they've been playing. So if I'm a Celtics fan, I'd be a little concerned just for the fact that if you are in the play-in, you are going to face either Milwaukee, Brooklyn, or Philadelphia. If you're the 8th seed, you're facing Philadelphia. And yes, history is on the Celtics side. The last 2 times the Celtics have faced Philadelphia, it's just been pure dominance. But these teams are different. They're very, very different. The Sixers are a different team than they were last year. Simmons is healthy. They have better shooters around him, around Embiid. And the Celtics lost Hayward. They got Evan Fournier, which he's been very, very good recently, but Jaylen Brown's missed a couple games. Robert Williams has an ongoing foot issue. It's just tough. I'm a Celtics fan, so I'll never truly count them out. I always believe they'll win any series they're in. But wouldn't it be something if we got Kyrie versus the Celtics first round? That'd be quite the story there. But yeah, tough times for the Celtics. Today's game made me very upset. I'm not going to lie. So huge game for the Celtics on Tuesday. If they lose that game, it all but guarantees they'll be the 7th seed at the very least. So if they win, they might move up to 6th seed, but we'll see what happens there. So we've spent the majority of this podcast talking about it. So we'll end this podcast talking about it. The play-in. You might be wondering, why do you guys talk about the play-in so much? Because it's a brand new, the whole format's a brand new thing to the NBA, and it's kind of a big deal. It's talked about everywhere, and we should definitely give you guys the coverage about the play-in because a week from Tuesday is when it first begins, all the way to the 21st, I believe. So we're going to give you some coverage next week as well. We'll have a full podcast just dedicated to the play-in. So Ben, before our podcast next week, when we know what the play-in matchups will be, who do you think will be in the play-in for each conference?
For the Eastern Conference, I think it's going to look how it looks now, except that the Wizards are going to leapfrog the Charlotte Hornets for 8th. So the Celtics at 7, Wizards at 8, the Hornets at 9, and the Pacers at 10. And the reason I think the Wizards will overtake the Hornets is because the Hornets have a really tough remainder of schedule, and the Wizards have a relatively easy one. And then they meet the final game of the series. So the Hornets play the Wizards, the final game of the season, So the Hornets have the Nuggets, the Clippers, and the Knicks, while the Wizards have the Hawks twice and then the Cavs before they play each other. Now, even if the Wizards were to beat the Hornets that final game, the Hornets would still own the tiebreaker, and the Hornets are a game ahead. But I think the Wizards could easily go 4-0 the way that they're playing right now and get to that 8th seed.
Real quick, just shout out the comment. Leo, what's up? We normally start at 8. Recently, we started a little bit late because of some technical difficulties and whatnot, but we normally start at 8. But it's good to see you in the chat, Leo. Hope you're doing well. Who do you got in the West?
In the West, no changes to make. The Lakers at 7, they've got a 2.5 game lead. The Warriors and the Grizzlies, that'll probably come down to, for 8 and 9, that'll probably come down to the final game. They play each other the final game of the season as well. Great coincidences here. Great job by the schedule makers. But yeah, and I picked the Warriors to win that, just based on recent play, I guess. And that's a big game, and Steph Curry is going to show up for that. And then the Spurs are going to stay at 10.
I mean, that's the power of having this season split in half. You can easily just be like, okay, these standings are a little bit close, so let's put these games at the end. I mean, you got the Celtics, Knicks. I can't say off the top of my head. I just know the Celtics game, but there's a bunch of good games remaining on purpose, and it's pretty cool. I agree with you on the West. I don't think anything's going to change there. I think the Lakers are content. I said that they should be. I think that they are content with the play-in. And the Lakers Warriors, that's going to get quite a bit of views. LeBron versus Curry in a play-in, not like a finals, a play-in. That's incredible. And then the Grizzlies Spurs, like you said, if Zion was healthy, I maybe would have thought, okay, maybe the Pelicans could sneak in, but he's not. He should be out for the rest of the season. There's a slight chance they make in. They won tonight. So I believe, what are they? They're like 1.5 games out, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
Pelicans. So there's a chance the Spurs, I believe, play 5 games in 6 nights. Same with the Grizzlies. So that's going to be a little grueling right there. But I just strongly think that the West is going to stay the same. And for the East, I got a little bit of biasness. I have the Heat sliding down. I think the Celtics do win on Tuesday, and the Heat have a really tough schedule. Now, that does depend on if the Sixers and Bucks play their starters or if they just go, especially the Sixers, we got the first seed. Why would we help out the Celtics? We'll just play our third unit and just hope that we lose or whatever. And the Bucks, they could, because they're fighting for the second seed. Depends how much they care about it. But I think the Celtics, because they face the Cavaliers and the Timberwolves, who are two of the worst teams in the league, so they should win those two. And then they face the Knicks the last game of the season, which could be a big game. So I think the Heat slide down there. The Wizards, I agree with you. I think the Wizards will. Bradley Beal's hurt, so that may affect that a little bit, but I still think their schedule's a little bit easy for them to sneak above the Hornets, who are without Miles Bridges, who they've been a little bit bad without Miles Bridges and Gordon Hayward. So, and the Pacers, the Bulls won tonight, so I believe that they're 2.5 games behind the Pacers, but I just think it's too little too late. There's like 4 games remaining, and I just don't think so. It sucks that Zach LaVine got hurt, or not hurt, he got sick. I think if they're fully healthy, maybe the Bulls would have made him run, but it was too little too late. So that's that. Let me read the comment real quick. Okay, shout out to Leo. So that's going to be it for us. Thank you guys so much for watching. Again, thank you guys always for your support on the podcast. And if you're listening to this on the podcast, tune in sometime. Every Sunday we go live at 8 o'clock on YouTube at Ball Around the Head. Watch us. It's very fun. You can engage with us in the comment section. But again, always thank you guys for your support. Next week we will have a podcast, same time. And we will talk about the play-in. So normally our podcasts go out a couple days after. So just know when we record this, it is on Sundays. So if a play-in result is different by the time it comes out, don't be like, wow, these guys are really dumb. This is not even true. Just know that we record it 2 days in advance. So just know that. So hope you guys have a good rest of your week. Again, happy Mother's Day to everyone out there who are mothers, and peace.